Entropia Universe, the game that has broken records for having some of the most expensive virtual items brought on the internet since its birthing. A real cash economy game that has stood the trials and tribulations of time for over 20 years. A massive multiplayer open world with potentially infinite leveling opportunities, and of course, the prospect to make money. Entropia Universe had and still has to a degree a loyal player base, and that player base saw the overhaul of game engines, even seeing an announcement that an Unreal Engine 5 update was soon to be in our sights. Then, in 2024, they announced that they are updating, rejuvenating, bringing life back into something I have wanted to see in the years I've played this game. Space. Space in Entropia Universe didn't exist until 2011, a full 8 years after the game first came out. I've only been playing since 2018, so space had been out for a full 7 years already by the time I started. This video is going to be me giving my overall views on the state of space, so here it is. Sure, there were mobs in space, but not hunted very often. They had the robot incursion introduced, as well as the 10th anniversary of space, and that was quite fun. The teamwork that was needed was genuinely enjoyable, and I enjoyed watching other pilots and crew come together to shoot and repair. But that was about it. And these events cost money, hence when they did happen, it was only for a couple of hours before the players returned to their respective planets. Even pirating in space died a little when the changes they made over the years came into effect. They made it so there was no lootable PvP between space stations and planets, as well as other areas of space. Although incredibly annoying, it made you seriously think about how you were going to transport your looted items. To risk it all for a 2-minute trip from the station to the planet, or chicken out and take the safer route of paying to get teleported down to the planet side instantly. But what I saw as such a huge section of this game that could literally fit the land areas of all the planets combined, to me, the area was ultimately going to waste and being neglected. For the better part of the last 2 years, I have been a warper and experienced the issues with space firsthand. I didn't realise how neglected space truly was. The bugs I could go into could be discussed for days, and here are just a few examples. You'd lose your torso when you leave the cockpit, and the only way to get it back was restarting the game. You wouldn't be able to see your weapon or hear its effects, but the weapon still worked and you could see the movement of the lower half, suggesting that everything was still functioning, even if you were technically half the person you are normally. It had its comedic values for sure, but nevertheless, it was still a bug that required a game restart to fix. Others are just plain annoying and time wasting. In some instances, when you leave the pilot seat or gunner seat, you get stuck in a wall and you have to press T to respawn back at the revival on the ship. It wasted time. Other bugs, such as getting stuck in the seat and unable to leave, require you to completely restart the game, wasting your time as well as the potential customers these warpers had waiting on them. This is hardly an exhaustive list of issues, and even though I saw these views mentioned on the forum and on the Discord countless times, it felt like space was being mostly ignored. Space, for me anyway, had become the bug cesspit of the game. For more recent issues, there was a camera bug in the game that locked you at an odd angle, unable to drive the ship effectively. It lasted 4 months until it was eventually fixed. In quite a few people's opinions, they believed it was only fixed because the prospectors were going to be patched in, and during the testing, the bug happened to the testers. But all of this is simply speculation, and I doubt we'll ever truly know. This was but a brief history on my personal issues within and around space in my time playing this game. There are so many players out there that own a spacefaring ship, whether that be a quadwing or a firebird or a mothership. There are so many pilots out there who have told me the same course of events for bugs that are as old as space itself. With so many spacefaring vehicles at our disposal, I could never understand how so many issues within this area of the game went unresolved. Not everyone has experienced these bugs. Not everyone goes into space on a daily basis. They would have minimal chance of encountering these. So, the reporting of said bugs was by a minority. But it also felt like the testers of the game just never went into space during trials for whatever reason. We know that members of MindArk can blink from one planet to another with a click of buttons. So, as a devil's advocate in some way, why would they notice something they never enter? It is by no means exonerating them from this oversight, but perhaps something to think about in the future. And with the announcement of the space update, it seemed like that was finally going to change. For a few years after the 10th anniversary event, the odd comment was witnessed on Discord and subtle hints were being given in the game. Then, on September 20th, 2024, players finally got a forum post on the future of space. It was titled, Prospector Rush. The post bragged a new special edition mining ship, giving opportunities on a colonial frontier. It was clear from the post that this was not for the faint of heart. It stated, these special prospectors will be available only to the most dedicated and resourceful colonists. And it was not an understatement. In order to obtain the ship, you had to gather enough of the required resources to turn into a trader located at Twin Peaks on Calypso. 6 new blueprints were to be discovered, each requiring a plethora of items to craft. You then needed to successfully craft 10,000 ped worth of said blueprint components, each. Only then could you turn it in and receive the rare ship deed token, as well as 10,000 ped shrapnel. I can tell you this now from speaking to members who got a token, it costs a lot more than that. It was also a first come, first served, with only 10 tokens available. The stage was set for a resource rush like no other. When the patch went live on the 26th of September 2024, the stars awaited us on that Thursday morning. This part of the pre-space update I genuinely enjoyed. As a player who tends to stockpile for a long period of time to try and find the best deal and then sweat every waking chance she gets in between trades, this was a prime time for someone like me to lighten the load on my resources and claim some well-earned ped. I had done my time and I had been patient. I was rewarded with getting almost double the markup percentage for some of the items required. This event needed everyone from all professions. Hunters, miners, crafters. It incorporated them all, and in my opinion it was successful. It felt like the game had been given a new injection of adrenaline. Players who hadn't been seen for months came back to grind this game, to grind a profession they loved. People were actively buying and selling. It stimulated the market that at the time had been drying up for months prior. For MindArk, it was a massive financial gain on their part due to how much ped was being spent in a short period of time, and I do mean short. All 10 tokens were snatched up just after 1 month the Prospector Rush went live, and many players hoped that this maybe, just maybe, meant that the new space overhaul was going to be something special. And then, just like that, the big reveal of space was delayed. A delay to finalise due to issues that had arisen within testing. Perhaps they were finally addressing some of the bugs that were occurring in space, so that when the ships released, they would no longer be as buggy as they once were. This didn't sit well with many of the prospecting ship owners. It felt like just another flimsy excuse. But with this delay, I hope that it meant they were really ironing out some of the oldest space bugs in the game. So, like every other Entropian at the time, I waited. On the 28th of January 2025, over a month of the release being delayed, it was finally here. Safe to say, I was a little excited. I loaded up the game and waited to see what had changed. Within the space stations themselves, new terminals were introduced. A space trade terminal where you could acquire the new mining tools to mine. New blueprints were also introduced to the game. as well as a tailings converter at the bottom of the terminal to convert to universal ammo. It had a 2-to-1 tailings to universal ammo rate. Then, you had the new behemoth of a machine where you could mass convert your tailings into PED. It looked like I had a long mining run ahead of me to witness these conversions and crafts firsthand. After familiarising myself with the new space station additions, I got into the pilot seat of my Pathfinder and ventured into the great beyond. My first thought was, finally, I can see Tulan. Next island looked like a vibrant blue planet. All the other planets seemed to have had a graphic and lighting update. Space seemed brighter. And there was even wrecked ships in space now. A pretty cool feature. I also noticed that around these shipwrecks were a new space pirate mob. I tried to attack them in the quad wing, but I wasn't skilled enough to kill very many without needing to leave and repair. I haven't yet tried it in the Pathfinder. I was lucky enough to trial the Prospector ship in attacking the pirates, and they were pretty easy to kill. The loot composition was the usual robot loot drops. It had a nice variety of markup overall. Not a bad mob. There were also waves of these mobs leading up to a final boss, one I have yet to encounter myself. But the biggest change I wanted to see was Howling Mine. I've warped to the mine a few times before, so I knew what it used to look like. There was definitely a facelift, that's for sure. Once you actually got into the mine, you had terminals to your left and to your right. They would light up with missions available. Some of you could already see on my sidebar I had already stupidly accepted these missions whilst not recording. The place was bigger than I expected. Apart from your usual terminals and a specific crafting area, the platforms extended for quite some time. I knew that there were other dailies awaiting for me at the other end of the mine, so I ventured forward. After passing the Never Die Dance Club, I finally found my destination, Sector 00. This was the daily I was talking about. The NPC spoke of sickly Argonauts that needed removing. I kill 40 of them and I am rewarded. As a little bonus, I received a gun and some PED at the start of the mission. Not too bad. Going forth into the cave, I was met with tiny Argonauts. Or, well, what was left of them whilst someone blew up the poor guys to death constantly. I saw the maturity of the Argonauts increase the further you got into the cave. I hunted the level 3s for a short time, but never saw a sickly spawn. I had to go back to the tiny maturity to try my luck there. So few spawned, and my small gun was no match for the rocket launcher. The concept of this daily is nice, but I think more areas need to have the low-level spawns instead of just the singular one. Utilise the space that was around here more. I feel like I really couldn't explore this daily more with people present. It was a copy-paste of the AI mission on Entropia, faults and all. I hope that they will address this soon to allow more people to hunt these guys. The daily mission being here is a fantastic idea, but I feel like it's a missed opportunity by not having more sections. Perhaps having an area like the robot pens on Cyrene or the Lara pens on NI, where there are specific locations for those mobs so multiple people can do the daily and not snatch the mobs from one another. You could add areas like this without losing the immersiveness of the lore that is behind this daily. A short distance from Sector 00, we had the accommodations and shops. I was slightly disappointed to see the shopping area was basically Medusa's Mall smacked into a rock. I was expecting something more unique, a shopping area that looked more aesthetically pleasing and matched to the theme of Howling Mine. After feeling like I had explored all that Howling Mine had to offer me, it was finally time for me to become a space miner. Apart from the visuals being updated in space, a new feature, space mining, was introduced. The concept is simple. You find big rock in space, you shoot big rock in space, and you loot big rock in space. The composition can be a variety of ores and end matter depending on what type of asteroid you hit. There are a number of classes called the C class, the F class, S class, and M class. Each class has a certain level of difficulty, and some asteroids will even have resistances that can only be removed with certain weapons. I have only experienced mining the C-class asteroids and have got a variety of ores from it, anything from iron ore to azadite. It was a variety I was not expecting from them, if I'm being honest. A little bit of worthless knowledge for you is the classes of asteroids actually exist in our world. There are 3 main categories of asteroid in our own universe. C-type, which is mainly composed of clay and silicate rocks. S-type, known as stony asteroids, these are made up of silica materials as well as nickel and iron. The M-type is more metallic in composition and very commonly nickel-iron. The F-type is actually a subcategory of C-type, and their unique feature is the absence or weak absorption rate of ultraviolet light. Although the rocks in Entropia do not follow these characteristics strictly, my inner space enthusiast was rather delighted to see these asteroids named by their type. Each planet has a local asteroid belt. I very much enjoyed this feature, as I was expecting the asteroid belt to only be near Calypso and Howling Mine, so I was very happy to see them across the whole universe. I also like the fact that the belt has a mixture of non-lootable PvP and lootable PvP for the harder rocks and more daring of pilots. It would be nice to see these areas be visible on the map, however, lootable PvP has never been visible on the map since its introduction, so I don't think they would add it now. I definitely think it keeps people on their toes when they hear the dreaded PvP sound fill their headsets unexpectedly. So this part of the video is being recorded a few weeks after the initial release. I wanted to see if any hotfixes were pumped out that addressed some of the more major concerns I had. This section is all up to date as of February 2025. The issue with Starfinder and Pathfinder usage for mining. I cannot say if the motherships encounter the same issue. Throughout this section of the video, you have seen me enter and exit the seats countless times to go from the pilot seat and then back into the gunner seat. I then equip and shoot the asteroid before leaving the gunner seat and heading back to the pilot seat. This process is honestly quite garbage, and it completely ruins the momentum for mining in space with this kind of ship. I've also included scenes with me in the quad wing mining, and it was a much more pleasant experience. You've been watching this video and seeing how I've had to get into the most ridiculous camera angles and even struggle to get to the camera moving appropriately in the first place. This, I'm sure, will be fixed, but this is also a core part of the entire space mining experience. This shouldn't have happened in the first place. And it's not just the Star and Pathfinder specifics either. Even prospector ship owners have commented on the dire state the cameras are currently in. Transport tokens. The ability to teleport yourself from Howling Mine to any other planet safely completely nullifies the need to ever warp commercially again. Mindark cannot afford to make these too easy to craft. There are many warp services in Entropia universe, and are not the same for everyone. Some players, like myself, rely on the warping business to be able to enjoy other aspects of the game. To remove the need for warp ships completely nullifies the tens of thousands of ped spent on obtaining the ship in the first place. Right now, the tokens are in such a state where it is still cheaper to get a warp, but this is a balance Mindark cannot afford to let slip in the months and potential years to come. I'll be watching this very closely. Mining on planets has also been brought to my attention, and this isn't something I'm very knowledgeable on, but I've been looking at the chats and also spoken to some miners. I'm keeping an eye on the ores that actually drop from the asteroids themselves. All of them have drastically dropped in markup. Ores such as pyrite, which someone like me has never looted before in her life, is now getting in the tailing recycling machine. For me, that's amazing, but I'm not so sure for the other miners. Continuing from this, we've taken a huge amount of deed money away from the deeds in-game. Most of the mining is happening in space, which doesn't have any sort of deeds connected to it. Calypso deeds are paying out lower than I have ever seen them. Throughout the video, you have been able to see the awful lag in Howling Mine, and this isn't limited to just Howling Mine. Even on other planets, the lag within chat boxes, shooting, and even delays in healing procs have caused the game to be much more frustrating than usual. Then, there was the memory leak that caused havoc on everyone in the first few weeks of the space update. Mindark have reported that it's fixed, and in their defense, I've not crashed due to the memory leak since. But it did cause daily crashes for many players, including myself, souring our first experiences. From someone who slowboats a lot, I've noticed that space seems to be a lot smaller than before. The flight times between planets has decreased. While I don't think this was necessarily a bad thing, none of the waypoints for the space stations, barring Calypso Space Station, are accurate anymore. It isn't necessarily game-breaking, just really annoying. Finally, 9 pages later, my space rant is done. Now, this video didn't cover everything. I think it would have been hours long if I could cover everything that's happened in Entropia since the space update. I wanted to give my own personal good and bad views of this update, because I think it needs to be said. Mindark are running a very thin line, and in some cases I fear they've already crossed it. Over the last year, the daily player count has been decreasing. Long-time players are taking breaks from the game in hope that Mindark do make some changes. Or they've completely cashed out because they disagree with how the game has changed so much in such a short period of time. This has been the biggest video project of my life, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it. I learned a lot of things along the way. Entropia is seeing more change than ever, and I get the feeling that I'll be making more of these videos in the future. Potentially not ones as serious as this, unless Mindark adds something completely left field. I do encourage you to write your own views in the comment section below this video. If you want a more live discussion, you can also find me streaming on Twitch a few days each week, as well as my Discord. I've put the links in the description below. Thank you everyone who has made it this far into my video, and I do hope to see you all in the future. Till the next video, Entropians. See ya.